All right, hello everybody. This is Mickey Moore, your host of Run Life Today. Welcome to another episode. Again, we're here to bring some authentic and inspiring conversations with those individuals who have seemed over time to learn the art of running more of life than letting life run them. Basically, it's the art of integrating work and life as best as you can. And I'm happy today to have Ben Hall with us. Ben, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. And as soon as we get the conversation started with Ben, but I wanted to pause and remind everybody, runlifetoday.org. Check out all of our episodes there. Watch us, like us, follow us on all those social media channels, and subscribe. But let's jump right into it. Ben, let's see, it's a Wednesday. I'm losing track, as you know, there's a recent holiday, and I think we all get thrown off. Were you thrown off a little bit on your schedule?
A little bit, yeah. We did. It's 2 hours to Wild Adventures from our house, and my family decided to make a trip in the afternoon. So I forgot what day it was, and had it not been for a quick trip to church, I wouldn't have known it all. So
yeah, my first email I sent work related on Tuesday. I said, "Hey, happy Monday. How are you?" So. Yeah, I was a little bit off, but
I did all my Monday stuff yesterday, and my Tuesday stuff, I guess. So,
well, Ben, as I mentioned before we started today, I appreciate the time that you're giving us to share your story and your tips on running life more than life running you. And we've met a few times, and we'll get to that and probably how our paths cross. But for the benefit of the audience and me, let's start with our conversation as we typically do. Fill us in on your background, where you're from. Tell us a little bit about your family, your upbringing. Kind of give us to, maybe when you first started thinking about a career and your education after high school. All right.
So I am born and raised Calhoun County, Florida. My parents are from here. Excuse me. And my education system, I went to a very small school out in the country called Carr Clarksville, Carr Elementary School. I think K through 8, we probably had around 200, 250 students, and in the time that I was there. It's a wonderful school. It was a very unique education for Calhoun County. And after that, I transitioned to Blountstown High School. You got two choices for high school in Calhoun County, Blountstown or Alpha. So, growing up playing Little League sports, really, really enjoyed that. Had no idea really what I wanted to do until probably 10th grade, 11th grade. And I wanted to, what I thought I wanted to do was a career in the Air Force. Went through the entire delayed enlistment program, and then shipped out to basic training. Within a few weeks, I had grown about 2 inches. The same thing happened to my first cousin, and stretched out an IT band. This was 1995. Everybody wanted to be in the Air Force then. So they're like, well, you know what? If you can't run, you can't walk, then you got to go home. So I had to rethink my career. So really a big change in my life that had come following a divorce from my parents that happened when I was in high school. So it was just a couple of big changes within just a few years that I had to adjust to. Really didn't know what God had in store for me after what I had planned to do for the next 20 years kind of went down the drain.
That's a 20 year. Okay. I got to pivot, sorry to use the word pivot. I know recently, with COVID, that's probably an overused word.
Listen, I know when you say pivot, I think of Ross from Friends carrying a couch up the stairs. So that's my family show. But anyway, it readjusting and working at, I did everything from working at gas stations to auto parts stores. I was a school bus mechanic before I started volunteering at a local fire department, and really decided then that was where I needed to be.
So that was the impetus, this volunteering.
It was, just getting involved in my community. I'd grown up being involved in different things around, from helping with small projects. The gas station I worked at in high school was right in the middle of town. It was Holly's Service Center. And a lot of people may even be watching this know Christy Terry, our chamber director. Everybody seems to know Christy. That was her grandparents' store. So I grew up with Christy like a sister, and they took, good care of me. They raised me too. And with that place being in the middle of town, you kind of stayed involved in everything. So that kind of fostered that wanting to be community minded and community involved. And I just really, when I moved up just north of Blountstown, after I'd gotten married, the love of my life, man, my wife is a wonderful lady, most especially because she puts up with me. But, so I started volunteering, and shortly after September 11th of 2001, I had made a commitment after that, this is what I want to do as a career. I was getting a late start. I was 22, 23 when I went through Fire Academy. They called me one of the old guys in Fire Academy because we had, 17, 18-year-old kids in there with me. But and it just kind of went from there. I didn't know where I was going to work. I didn't know what I was going to do. And then the position came open here at Blountstown Fire Department, a extremely unique position in the fire service. I'm a career chief at a primarily volunteer fire department.
Okay. All right, now
you're talking to the only career firefighter in the area.
So now that's where you still are today. But I'm going to pause.
I am. 18 years later, I'm sitting here.
I'm going to pause you there because you got to give me a second to ask you some follow-up questions. And I told you I'm going to dig a little bit. So
absolutely.
So let's pause. Let me go back to growing up a little bit. So you and I have familiarity with Alpha and Blountstown. I know the Tuckers. I know, the family, Eli, the Stoltzfus.
Oh
family.
Man, Elam is one of my close friends. I love Elam. He's good.
And of course, Enoch Hanna and Terrell Hanna,
right.
Not to mention, of course, Modell Stone, who started Southern Scholarship Foundation, who lived out there as well. So very familiar with the area. But tell me a little bit about your mom and dad and what they did and your siblings, if you've got any. Were you first generation Blountstown? Were they third generation Blountstown?
Oh my goodness. My family goes back probably a little over 100 years in Calhoun County.
Okay.
As far as inside, the Blountstown proper, we all, most of us live here. I have 3 other siblings, an older brother and 2 older sisters. Okay. They were 15, 13, and 9 when I was born. So I think my oldest sister is still a little chapped about that. My mom was about 35 when I was born, and in 1976, that was just unheard of, to have, you're 35 years old and having a baby. My grandparents were mortified, and but growing up, they kind of had a big hand in raising me. Not that my parents weren't capable, because I grew up in a very loving home. I joke a lot of times about growing up with a drug problem. My parents drugged me to church every time the doors were open, so. But that's the way it was. My dad he's retired now, lives in Apalachicola, but he'd been in the timber industry for probably 50 years. Started off just running a veneer mill, making boards, all the way up to owning his own timber company, and cutting trees and replanting trees. He took them to a place several years ago that they had cut and replanted for the 3rd time in his career. So it's just amazing. My mom was a homemaker, and then after she and Dad divorced, they opened a daycare center here in Blountstown at Gateway Baptist Church that is still going today. That was 25 years ago or more, and they're on their 2nd generation of kids there at Gateway Daycare. So it's pretty awesome. It was not a fun time there for a little while, but God worked out some pretty awesome stuff out of it.
And they do, and he does. I know I can relate a little bit to the class size. I don't know if you've heard of Century, Florida.
I have.
Okay. So I lived in Century my sophomore year of high school. Long story how I ended up there from New Smyrna Beach. Okay. But fortunately, it was only a year. But the senior class that year had 40 people in it,
Oh, yeah.
And I remember the first day of school, I wore shorts, and they sent me home, and they said, "No, you're not allowed to wear shorts at our school." And this was 1986. So you talk about a culture shock,
I bet. Yeah.
Wow. But I certainly appreciated the small town feel. People were super nice. Not a mean person in that town. And I'm still connected with a few people I played baseball with. So, all right. So now I'll move forward a little bit. I just wanted to get the rest of that little bit of background.
Sure.
You're coming through high school. It was the Air Force. That didn't work out. So you started, what else am I going to do? You got your jobs. You had to make some money. You had to carry your weight, earn your keep, and all those things. and eventually got into the fire academy. So now I want to shift to a lane, specifically a career. So
Right.
18 years now,
Right.
you have been a fireman,
I have.
serving your community. What stands out? What does it mean to you to be a fireman there in Blountstown for 18 years?
I'm one of those people that I can bring somebody in and get some help, but it's easier for me just to go do it than tell somebody to go do it, I'm if you want it done right, you do it yourself type person.
Yeah.
And so I wanted our community protected as best as it could be done. My family lives here now. Almost all of my siblings live right here in Blountstown. Close friends, my wife's family lives here. Most of them live here. So I really wanted to make sure they were well taken care of. I want to make sure people are safe, to the best of my ability. And I knew the only way that I felt like that was going to get done was if I did it. So, we're constantly training. We're constantly doing things to make the fire department better. We've changed a lot in 18 years. 18 years ago, where I'm sitting wasn't here. I'm in an office now, office/classroom. And now, when I first came here, this was an open loft upstairs at the fire station. We doubled the size of the fire station, but in the last 2 years. So just making sure people are taken care of. I have a heart for people. I don't want to see anybody suffer. I want to make sure that people are taken care of as best they can.
And I mean, the things y'all do, again, you got the cat in the tree,
and
right?
we do it. We do it.
You got the cat in the tree, and you got the 4-alarm fire or 5-alarm fires, and
right.
All of the above. So tell me a little bit about the size of the team, the rotations that you have there.
We have, like I said, we have a unique situation. I'm here 5 days a week from 7 to 3 ish. Sometimes, like, I was here at 6 this morning, but I may be here till 4 tomorrow or 8 tomorrow night. It flexes back and forth. My team, I've got 17 firefighters. They are paid per call. So they're basically a volunteer that gets paid a little bit for every call they run. We have someone on call on the weekends. We pay them a little bit to be on call and hang around town so that we can guarantee a response. We don't want anybody to ever call Blountstown Fire Department and there not be somebody to respond. So that's one of the things that I have 2 captains, 2 lieutenants, and 2 senior firefighters in that group. And between me and my officers, we make sure that Blountstown is covered. We make sure Blountstown is taken care of. This long weekend that we had, I was able to go enjoy some family time, thanks to one of my captains that was on call. And during that time, he came up, he cranked the truck. See, we have a detailed checklist that our guys go over. I was just looking, that's one of the checklists that they went over this weekend. So that we know that things are ready for our citizens, that and it's a good team. Most of my guys are certified to the minimum of what, a lot of people don't realize that a volunteer firefighter in the state of Florida, in order to make entry into a house, has to go through basically 1/2 of what a career firefighter has to go through. It's around 200 hours of classroom training. And most of my guys have been through that. Some of them have been through the minimum standards, and we share them with other fire departments, other career fire departments in the area. EMTs, paramedics, you name it, we've got them here. I'd put our guys up against anybody. They're a good crew, and they're a dedicated crew.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. What about, so you have a quick story, closest, hardest call you've ever been on as a fireman?
Oh, wow. I was having a discussion. My daughters are now, they're 13 and 16. So I've got an 8th grader and a senior officially now that school's out. So school's about to start. And they're old enough now to start asking, about calls and about different things. And, there's been hard calls. There's been great calls where we rescued people. We run a lot of wrecks. Highway 20 is a pretty bad spot in Calhoun County. So we run a lot of wrecks. We run a lot of house fires. I always hate anytime we have to respond to children. There was several years ago, it's been almost 10 years ago now, we responded to a call for a semi truck flipped over in south end of Liberty County. We had a 25-minute ride, and we get down there, and it's a guy that grew up as one of my dad's best friends had passed away in that crash. So that's a tough call. Anytime, and that's one of the things. We've got a brand new guy. We do a scholarship every year through our 5K race that we put on, and we got a brand new guy, and he's so new we had to show him how to use the push to talk button on the radio. But that's great. He's starting at zero and learning the right way. And I was telling him, one of the things you're going to have to realize in serving your community is that the people you serve, and you're going to see them on their worst day, is people you know. That's probably one of the most difficult things to deal with. Worked a call with a guy, one of my classmates, that his mom had had a heart attack and passed away in the living room. And I sat on the couch with him and just sat beside him, for a while. And just, that's part of more of the job that people don't realize is, you going in and putting out the fires, or wearing the fireman jacket and wearing the t-shirt and doing the hero thing. That's not as much what it's about. Is about having a relationship with people and being there with them on their toughest day, and serving them on their toughest day. It's about customer service. Yeah.
Well, what about the mental health for your team members? What can you do? What are you doing?
So that's a huge thing. Very recently in the news, what happened in California yesterday with LA County Fire Department, a fireman, with a shooting there at the fire station, and then an apparent suicide. It's so sad to see that. Obviously something got to him. We talk a lot. If we work a particularly tough call, we even, among the volunteer departments out in Calhoun County, there are 8 other fire departments out in the county that are true volunteer. They get paid nothing. And we talk with these guys. We know that the guys that some dear friends of mine just north of us worked the crash where one of my daughter's classmates was killed back several months ago. And so the very first thing we did was I'm on the phone with their chief going, "Hey man, are you guys okay? Why don't you guys come up here and talk? What can we bring you? What can we do for you guys?" And that's what it's about, is getting them to talk. I still call him Captain Dilks. He was, I think he retired as the chief, but John Dilks has a wonderful program. He was retired from Tallahassee Fire Department, called the First Alarm Project. That's a mental health project. You can get on the app, and you can log in on the app and just say, "Hey, I worked a bad call and I really need somebody to talk to about this." And within just a few minutes, they've got somebody calling you. It may not be anybody from your department. It could be somebody from somewhere across Florida, but they're there to help you. They're there to listen. And that's what we encourage here. Nice. We're talking to our guys. We're making sure they're getting that out, that they're not holding it in. And that's a very, very important, that mental health aspect is a very important part of the fire service, right? Especially right now.
Okay. Thank you, man. That's great. That's awesome. And to lighten the mood a little bit, my last question about fire world, the fireman world. So let's see, your favorite movie is Backdraft or whatever. And the other option is, are you guys going to do a Fireman's Calendar?
So, oddly enough, my favorite movie is not fire related. Okay. And that's part of, integrating. We talked earlier about integrating the family aspect. We did a vacation that recently over spring break to go search out my daughter and I's favorite movie location. It was filmed just over the state line in Mobile and Fairhope, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. So and we spent a family adventure week doing that, but a Fireman's Calendar, Mickey, I try to behave a little differently when I come over to Tallahassee and not let my redneck show too much, but I'll just say that if I tried to do a Fireman's Calendar, I'd look like a busted biscuit can. Okay. So I'm not going to, we've talked about it, we've joked about how much of a joke it would be and how funny it would be. And I'm not sure that it might not happen. Okay. So it may just happen. All right. So then, how many more years you got? What do you think? Another 10? Oh, 9 more. 9 more. Okay. November 1st of 2030. I will have been fire chief for 28 years, and it will be time. Okay. I worry often about losing my effectiveness as a leader. And, anywhere you stay too long, if you don't keep things fresh, if you don't keep things moving, you can lose your effectiveness. And I worry about that. We've got a lot of great things going on right now at Blountstown Fire Department. We just, less than a year ago, we moved into a brand new, or we added on to our building here. So we basically got a new fire station, rewrapped and repainted and buttoned it up nice, doubled the size, thanks to a state legislative appropriation. Shout out to Senator Mumford. He took good care of us. So But we're rebuilding from Hurricane Michael, which was a tremendous blow to our community. The mental health aspect that you asked about after that was, even for myself, I struggled.
Right.
And balancing those things after Hurricane Michael, but we're recovering from that. So we've still got it. I'm not done yet. I'll say that. I'm not finished. So,
but you know the date, November.
I know the date. Yeah, I will. That and I think my wife will be ready for me to quit carrying a radio everywhere we go, and it'll be time. Both my daughters hopefully will be out of college by then, so it'll be time. It'll be time to start something different.
Good. All right. So let's change lanes a little bit, right? So outside of work, and I may ask you a couple more questions about Hurricane Michael when we get to volunteering, because I know it took a lot of volunteering from you and other people in that community. Brother and I came over as well to help out. We'll get to that, but let me transition now to another lane I know you spent some quality time in, whether it be riding, swimming, biking, etc. But you like the fitness thing. So tell me about your commitment and discipline when it comes to how many fitness things you fit into your day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month.
Oh, wow. I started off my fitness journey as a wonderful ARNP grabbed me by my side and said, "You got to do something, or I'm going to put you on a bunch of medicine." And from then it just I decided, well, my wife says, "Come on, let's get out and walk." And then it went to, well, I'm going to run to that light pole, and then I'm going to walk, and I'm going to run to that light pole, and then I'm going to run a 5K before I turn 35. That was it, and that was, 9 years ago. And after my first 5K, I said, well, maybe I'll run a 10K. And in the middle of running my first 10K at Springtime, Tallahassee, my buddy Mark and I decided to sign. He had already run a marathon, and I decided to sign up for a half. Signed up for that half. In the middle of that half, I decided to run a full. And now probably, I don't know, 18 or 20 fulls later, I don't know how many halves, and 2 or 3 ultras. I'm hooked. The multi-sport thing is fun. Sometimes my training is extremely dedicated and very structured. Sometimes it's a dumpster fire. But
for a fireman,
my normal regiment, one of the best things that has happened through, Work Addicts and Eric Davis and their bunch, through some of the run groups with Gulf Winds Track Club, even though we're not over in Tallahassee, right here in Blountstown, we run twice a week. We have a group run. Our little Facebook page, oddly enough, is called A Case of the Runs, if you look it up. So something that my buddy Mark and I just kind of came up with, 9 years ago when I first started running. And, Monday nights at 5:30, we're about to transition back into the summertime and start running at 7. But there's a group of us, there may be anywhere from 3 or 4 to 10 or 12 that come out and run with us. We'll just do a few miles either around town during the wintertime or on the Greenway Trail. Our Greenway Trail is a absolute gem here in Blountstown. If you've run Catfish Crawl, that's where it's at. And a lot of times it's with that short 5K course, the Catfish Crawl, you don't get to see the whole thing. The whole trail is 3.5 miles one way. So it touches the river, it touches Sam Atkins Park near the Panhandle Pioneer Settlement. So with that, as far as my training goes, right now it's 3 to 4 runs a week, maybe more. Usually I do short, medium, and long run. With my bike ride, like I said, this morning I was up getting my daughters off to summer workouts, and it was a perfect time to get on Zwift for a little while and ride the bike trainer. So I rode yesterday, getting out on the time trial bike and just getting some miles in with that. Maybe I snuck a ride at the airport runway here in Calhoun County, but the gate was open. So yeah. But it's one of those things. So keeping it fun is the biggest thing. Yeah. Keeping that training fun and changing scenery a little bit. That's why I love coming to Tallahassee to run. I'll be over there tonight for Global Running Day. So keeping things mixed up and keeping things fun. One of the things that I absolutely love to do is run with my wife. She doesn't always like it because I'll talk all the time while she's running. But, we do one race a year together. We do Space Coast half together. And but we got out last night and ran just a couple of miles to fill in the rings on our Apple Watch, and had some quality time. And that's been one of the best things that has happened with my running and my training over the last few years, that when our daughters got old enough that we could we could leave them at the house for a little while, and get a few miles in. That the quality time that my wife and I get to spend together is excellent. So
nice, man. That's great. Are you doing the Callaway triathlon?
yes, I'll do the duathlon.
Triathlon, okay.
Funny story. If you want a funny story, real quick,
Sure.
I would do the swim and the bike and the run, and I coached cross country for a little while at Blountstown High School. And we were all out one day. I have never been a fast runner. I'll run far, but I won't run fast. So we've got these kids that are out there smoking out, 17-minute 5Ks and less. So we're out on a back road running with these kids, and I can't keep up with them. So I'm riding my bike, and I had a little road bike, and I'm riding along with them. Well, we turn around and come back, and I had ridden up to check on some of the other kids, and a big log truck turns out of a side road onto that road. Wasn't going very fast, but we all shift over to the right lane, and I committed, one of the cycling sins. I went to go around one of my kids on the right side, and I should have said, "Hey, on your left," and I didn't. Well, I wasn't going very fast, maybe 10 miles an hour, but she looked back and saw me and darted to her right, and I went to her right, and I knocked both of us over. Bless her heart, Tyra still got scars on her elbow. She had a nice bike tire size bruise on her back of her leg, and I ended up with a broken shoulder and a mild concussion and 3 bruised ribs. So I got the bad end out of that deal. But ever since then, I swim in circles. So with one bad shoulder. So I've been doing the duathlon, but yeah, I'm doing Callaway Gardens duathlon. So that's I'm looking forward to that.
It's a beautiful place to be.
It's gorgeous.
Right?
It's gorgeous.
Maybe use that as a motivation. But kudos on the strides you've made. And again, you and I could talk for a long time about the benefits of, being active, whatever it is, and however it is, and how often you do it. It's just such a good thing up here,
It is.
I mean, for me, it's more about solving things and getting my quiet time and creating.
Right.
But yeah, keep it up, man. And maybe a full Ironman is in your future. You never know.
Until they start doing a duathlon with those, maybe not. Maybe I can do a little therapy and get back out there and swim some more. But we'll see. Some of those guys that are doing them are beasts. We both know a lot of guys and share some common friends that do them. So maybe one day.
All right, so let's transition to another lane, right? Let's talk about community involvement, volunteering, all of those things. Because again, you're in a very tight-knit community, relying upon people to do things without pay, right? To serve your community. So tell me, again, we can talk about Michael, we can talk about the race that you direct, right? That y'all put on as a fundraiser. You're giving scholarships. I'm sure your church, you're probably volunteering, but share a little bit about the places that you and your family volunteer and give back in the community.
There are so many opportunities. Blountstown's a small town, so it's almost like the same 50 or 100 people are doing all the volunteer work. Anywhere from, Calhoun County Chamber of Commerce to different civic organizations that we've got here, Main Street, and I've tried to instill that value of community and volunteerism in my daughters. We do host, Blountstown Fire Department host Catfish Crawl 5K. Man, what a year that last year we had. They made it a Gulf Winds Track Club Grand Prix race. I remember, I saw a Facebook post shared where Nancy Stedman had shared our Facebook post in 2019 and said, "Hey, everybody, come do this race and stay in Blountstown and spend your money. They need it." That was post Hurricane Michael. So that still means so much to me that we had 310 runners that year that came over and did that race. And that has funded scholarships. We just gave our 6th scholarship and out of, I think we've done 8 races, and we awarded our 6th scholarship. And 5 of those guys are now actively working in the fire service somewhere in the panhandle of Florida. So that it's been a very successful scholarship. Instilling that volunteerism in my daughters and my family, and they volunteer for that race. I mean, that's a family affair. 2019, I have a picture somewhere, and it's of all of my family, save for my dad and his wife that were on a camping trip that weekend. Everybody from the youngest to the oldest was at that race volunteering that day, including my fire department family. And that meant I can't begin to tell you what that meant to me. The best thing, and you know, the best thing and the worst thing, and I tell this often, that happened to Blountstown was Hurricane Michael. We were on the cusp of some, I felt like some great ecotourism, some great opportunities for Blountstown, and we watched it all kind of blow away in about 4 hours. But people have asked me several times, you know, did you send your family somewhere to ride the storm out? And you know, my family stayed right here in Blountstown. They stayed in a storm shelter at our church. And from the minute the wind stopped blowing, we went to work. For us and for our volunteers, it was about clearing trees and accessing houses, making sure people are safe. But what I watched my wife and my daughters do through our church and they set up a distribution center, and they started handing out food and meeting basic needs. You know, just being hands and feet, basically, and the volunteerism and the sense of community that it gave them has gone there in their lives and really worked in their lives tremendously. I mean, they were giving it from toilet paper to food items, you know, whatever people needed, they had it. So, and to this day, you know, my wife will tell you that was one of the best things that ever happened to them, as far as the storm was terrible. There was, you know, lives lost, and there were possessions lost, but the way they were able to build bonds. My daughter, who is 16, still goes and sees Miss Willette, and she's a lady that lives in some, you know, south in town and some low income housing, that is one of her best friends still from that, because she snuck some solar lights out from the back for her or something. And every time Miss Willette sees me, she wants to know how her baby's doing. So, you know, relationships that are built like that. We volunteer with you know, with our church and different things around the airport, take stock in children, different programs like that we see. I've told my daughters, look at where the money goes before you run a race. Always ask, where's the money going? One of the reasons, the first time I ever actually ran across you, I ran a race because Nick Stolfus, Trent Smith, and Devin Rolak were all in a Southern Scholarship Foundation house. Yeah. And I think you won the race the year that I did it. Yeah. So I went over and ran that race. Caitlin Stewart was there. She's from Blountstown. She's married now, different last name, but so it was great seeing some familiar faces, and I knew where that money went. So I've always told my daughters, before you donate to something, before you do a race, you know, before you volunteer something, look where the money's going. And that's been a great thing. My daughters have raised money, and I have raised money for Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's. That's a very, very near and dear subject for me. We lost my mom to Parkinson's 4 years ago, and so we're doing all we can with them to help find a cure. So just whatever you've got that you can give, and that's what I've told my daughters. If you've got something that you can give, give it. If you've got a talent that you can use it. My oldest daughter is a natural leader and a 4'11" absolute boss lady, and so she uses that. My youngest daughter has a talent to communicate with the roughest and gruffest of the crowd. You know, my Madeline fans are these big guys that she can melt in just a few minutes and make them, you know, they'll donate, they'll work, you know, whatever she asks them to do. So that's something that they each have in their own talent that they can use. So, and it's interesting to see that develop.
Nice. And, you know, what I admire there is, you know, again, it's how it permeates the family, right? You've developed a culture of philanthropy, if you will, within your family, and participation. Again, right. I'll piggyback there. It doesn't always have to be financial, and that's where too many people get caught up thinking about, you know, nonprofits and fundraising, and, you know,
right.
What's from a business perspective. Just get people to participate in your mission. You know, eventually they may support you financially, but let them get their hands dirty. Maybe they got a talent that you just don't know about. Right. Their circle of friends. I mean, there's so many ways people can contribute.
Oh yeah.
And then lastly, of course, I can't ignore Southern Scholarship Foundation, but when you drop that in, but I couldn't be more proud of the Blountstown connection that we had. You know, Mary Lois Midfield, you know, was my predecessor, coming in behind the founder's daughter. little bit of pressure there.
Right.
But I made sure, I remember interviewing Enoch Hanna my first year. I called him over. He came to Tallahassee and I interviewed him for 15 minutes on camera to get the exact story of, he was one of the first 2 students in the program.
Right.
And it was that connection. It meant so much to me. So when Nick was there and Trent, and hopefully there's still students coming from Blountstown, from Calhoun
Right.
County, because that's what it's there for, is to Dr. Stone himself. He wanted those rural students an opportunity to get a higher education that they typically wouldn't. But
Right.
it was housing that they didn't have money for,
Right.
So anyway, so thank you for mentioning that. So obviously you're giving a lot of time and energy in that community and volunteering lane as well. So there's hobbies. I know you got a lot of things. You guys are out, you like to travel, you like to do things, you like to be outdoors, but
Do.
there's also side hustles. So tell me a little bit about, I know photography, maybe you're in, there's something about bikes or something you're in. Where else are you spending some quality time and energy?
Oh, wow. So, the photography thing I picked up when my daughter, my youngest daughter was born. I would snap a few pictures, and it went from, hey, you should snap some pictures for me too. Make a few pictures of my daughter. And then it was, well, hey, do you do weddings? And I was like, well, that's no pressure there. But so I was like, yeah, I'll try it. And now it's almost exclusively destination weddings, beach weddings, stuff like that. I don't want to not always do the 8-hour spend all day and all the fluff and frill like I used to, because my daughters are older, because I like spending time with my family. But on occasion, they go with me. Both my daughters are accomplished photographers in their own right. We're going to national beta competition because my oldest placed in state beta competition for photography. So, they'll go with me. It's something they can do with me. The photography is one of those things. It's just kind of been a side hustle that hangs around. And if somebody asks, yeah, we'll do it. The Rusty Fox Bike Shop that's one of those things that was born out of COVID. I am a mechanically minded person by heart. And like I said before, I worked at a gas station. I changed oil. I did tires and all that. And then I worked at a school bus garage, and I worked at a car dealership one time as a mechanic. So when I started riding bikes, I was like, it's an hour to Tallahassee. They got some great bike shops over there, but I don't want to go to Tallahassee to get a minor adjustment. It's hard to do. So I just started tinkering on my own bikes. And then I picked up a bike and rebuilt it one day for a kid here in town that needed a bike rebuilt. So we rebuilt it and gave it to him. And then it kind of went from there to some of my triathlete buddies saying, hey, can you put a couple of tubes in for me? I've got a derailleur that won't work. And so in the early days of COVID and in the first lockdown, I had to have something to do. They didn't have ADD when I was little, so I just got a spanking, So something to occupy my time and keep my hands busy, so I wouldn't drive my family absolutely bananas. And so there's a little upstairs loft at our house, and that turned into the Rusty Fox Bike Shop. Where the name came from, I wanted to do something. We donate a portion of our proceeds to the Michael J. Fox Foundation. So that's the Fox part. And I got a great nephew that had a stuffed animal he called Roasted Fox. So I'm like, I guess the Rusty Fox is it, So
Nice.
That's where it came from. And we're building bikes. I got a bike in yesterday. The lady says, well, it's in pretty good shape and it's yellow. And she was half right. It's yellow. So, but other than that, it's just fun to do. There's everything from just replacing a tube. And I never want to do anything that's going to take away from, some of those bike shops in Tallahassee that have been so good to me over the years. There are things that I can't do and I won't do that are complicated that those guys are experts at. But if it's swapping out a tube or a minor tune-up or something like that, changing a tire, I take care of it. But it's mostly just getting in some old bikes. And in fact, as we're sitting there, I remember there was one on the side of the road last night while I was running. I want to go pick it up and see if I can fix it. We'll give it to a kid or something like that. And I see people out and getting healthy and riding and enjoying. And I think Mark Twain said riding a bike can be enjoyable if one can survive learning to ride it. So
Yeah.
that maybe we can, rejuvenate our cycling community. And we've got a pretty good one over here already. I know Tallahassee has a wonderful one. Dothan has a great one in Panama City, but something that we can rejuvenate here and get going in Blountstown through that is, and plus that might be, who knows, that might be my retirement plan, is to do a little bike shop.
There you go. And look, COVID, again, there are a lot of bad things about COVID, but I think one of the pleasant things that I saw was just people were outdoors again, and
That's exactly
before
right.
they didn't have time, right? And then all of a sudden, that's no more a good excuse because,
Right.
Southwood, where I am, I had never seen so many people walking, riding, skating, whatever, around the lakes here. And I remember going to university cycles, I don't remember when it was, probably last summer, and they didn't have any bikes. He said they couldn't
Right.
get bikes. People in Atlanta were calling them, "Do you have any bikes for sale?" And his inventory was so low and he
Right.
couldn't buy them. So that was a positive, to see people re-engaging the outdoors, which is something, again, there's a whole nother lane, family, right? And then faith. You've talked about it a lot through the other lanes, right?
Right.
So to save time today, we're not going to dedicate those full lanes, but I know just watching Facebook and knowing who you are, you're spending even more time with quality time with your family, your church family, but it's also integrated across all of those other lanes, right?
It does. It does. And if you're doing it right, it will. If you're doing the family thing the way you should, if you're doing your faith, if you're doing, I hate to just call it the church thing because it's so much more than that.
Yes, sir.
But if you're living out your faith like you should, it's gonna integrate across everything you do, and it's gonna show across everything you do, from the fire department to Rusty Fox Bike Shop to having an opportunity just to share a few minutes or just be nice to somebody when you're making a picture. Whatever it is that you're doing, you show a little love and a little compassion, goes a long way.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're doing it right, it's going to bleed through your family, and through everything you do.
Yeah, agreed. Well said. Well, I certainly know a lot more about you than I did 40 minutes ago. So thank you for sharing. And we could probably talk another hour, but I want to get to, the question, right? As I had mentioned to you earlier, and of course our audience, every episode, this is an opportunity for you to kind of share some suggestions and tips. There's no formula. Okay. So let me preface that. It's
Right.
more an art. In my opinion, it's an art on how we learn to integrate work and life to some successful degree. So you're doing it. I think we've proven that here. You've got a lot of different lanes you're in. But everybody's life is relative to their own situation. So share what you want to share as far as, hey, try these tips because it works for me. What do you say?
Wow. One of the biggest things I've told my guys here at Blountstown Fire Department, and they are volunteers, is that we're family first. You know what? We can do training another day. You can come back in and do a training. If you've got a kid that's got a ball game, go watch that ball game. Spend the time with your kids that you need to. There's a little meme out there that says, hey, your obituary and the advertisement for your job will be on the same newspaper. So, but do balance that job and have your work time, but do your best to, when you can, involve your family in those different, even if it's the side hustles, little things. They go and shoot pictures with me on the beach. We've got a big wedding coming up in the next few months, and they're going to help me shoot this big wedding. So involve them, invest in them. I say be invested in your family. Take the time. Like I said, we took 30 minutes last night, my wife and I, ran together. The other thing I would say is that when work is over, let work be over and get on your family's level and do something with them. One of the greatest experiences I had, and the teacher has since retired, but I was in the Nutcracker Ballet with my daughters at the Bristol Ballet School. That was something that was totally their thing and a good bit outside of my normal thing. I mean, you don't see many fire chiefs up there doing the Nutcracker Ballet. No, I was not really dancing. I wasn't on point shoes, and doing plies.
Right.
But It was, I played one of the characters, and it was something that I could do that was with my daughters that was on their level. I get out and hit the volleyball with them. I get out and do whatever is their thing. To get out, get on a backcountry road and drive around. So take that time once work is done, and take some time, daily or weekly, to spend with your family on their level, and not just you talking, but you listening. It's more important. I had an elementary school teacher that said, you got one mouth and two ears, and that's because you should listen twice as much as you should talk. So listen to what they have, hear their, not just listen, but hear their concerns, and take it to heart. That time invested in your family and in your kids is time that you can't get back. Somebody told me when my daughter was little, they're like, before you turn around, she's going to be a senior in high school. And I'm like, yeah, right. This is going to be the longest 16, 17 years of my life. And that's not the case. Wow. I can't believe she's already looking at schools for college. And it's kind of crazy thinking about that it was just a few days ago. It seems like we were at Gulf Coast Hospital bringing her home. So, it's balancing that and spending that time. Set aside your time for your faith, no matter what your faith is. Find something that fits you. I am adamant, even though I am a Christian and I go to a Baptist church, that may not be for everybody, but find something, a faith that matches up with your beliefs, and stick with it. Invest in that, because the more you invest in that, the more you get out of it. The more you invest in your family, the more you get out of it. If you're distant with your family, if you're distant with your spouse, you're distant with your kids, you're not going to get much back from them. But being invested and spending that face-to-face time is worth more than anything. So,
okay, thanks, man. Yeah, I mean, so again, as you started early on, prioritizing and investing in family and faith, right?
Absolutely.
That should be priority, according to your tips and suggestions. That's how you're doing that. But the other piece is, when you make that investment, I mean, let work be done. When work's done, let it be done. Shift your focus. I think today it's so easy to be work-minded at 8 p.m. because you've got, these things.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? And everything else. And from a practical standpoint, one of the best things I ever heard was, no phones in the bedroom. Just that simple thing. You walk into your master bedroom that you share with your partner, spouse, friend, whatever, leave that phone turned off when you walk across that doorway. I mean, that's simple, but it gets to your point of let work be done.
Right. It doesn't come overnight. I will be honest about that. Being able to release that and turn that work loose is something you got to work on. It took me probably 15 years on this job to be able to say, let the captain's on call, let him handle it. That firefighter's on call. If he needs something, he can call his captain. That takes some training on our part to be able to let work go. Well, and there's still a few times where I'm like, my phone will ring when we're off somewhere and I'll have to take care of something, and that happens. But for the most part, let work be work and let home be home. Yeah. And you remember earlier on when you said you're one of those, you just as soon do it yourself. Right. And that is the rub. That's why it takes time for leaders, right? Because some of us know we can do it maybe better than anybody, but we got to surround ourselves with people who are smarter than us, and we got to trust them enough and delegate enough so then we can mentally check out now and then, right? That's right. So it just takes 10 or 15 years to get that through our stubborn heads sometimes. Right. And back to how we talked about, running is what helped me do that. If I am 8 miles out on a trail, there's not much I can do. I can answer the phone, but that's about it. So that's been one of the great things that I can unplug and go do that. And I got guys that will allow me to do that. So, yeah. Well, Ben, I've enjoyed our conversation today, and to our audience, I'm sure you've enjoyed it as well. I have. Thank you. Again, look for this episode, friends. It'll be up on the website soon at runlifetoday.org, and check it out, and check out all of our episodes. Again, the tips and suggestions on how you can better run life than life running you. Thanks, Ben. I will see you sometime soon on a trail, on a path, somewhere running. We'll be out there. Yeah, I'll absolutely look forward to seeing you. So sometime come over and run with us.
I'll do that, man. Take care of yourself.
Thank you.
Yeah.